All right. So my name is Sierra. I'm the admissions officer for Lincoln Memorial University College of Veterinary Medicine. I've only been here since January of this year, so I'm very fresh new and have had a sharp learning curve, as is with all new things, but it's been very fun. So hopefully today I will be able to present to you some useful information for you able to take in information about our school. I've got it mixed in. The first half of the presentation is going to be about requirements and the admissions process itself. And then towards the end of it, we'll have some things that are specifically dealing with LMU CVM. So LMU CVM is a private not-for-profit university. We are committed to the Appalachian region. We are located in the Appalachian region. We have a top-notch educational focus, with the emphasis being on hands-on learning and to get applicants ready for day one clinicals when they go into their fourth year. So before we get into other aspects of the school, minimum requirements for LMU CVM, all schools that you apply to have specific requirements, and it's important to know what the requirements are for each individual program you're looking to apply for. These are the minimum requirements for our university. 43 semesters or 65 quarter units from a regionally accredited college or university. Some students are concerned that those need to be in person and they worry about the validity of online programs. Online grades or transcripts are good to go. Just make sure that they are regionally accredited. We require a 2.8 minimum GPA. Applicants must complete the CASPER. We are, knock on wood, not looking to go back to the GRE. So applicants must complete the CASPER. For each application cycle, that CASPER must be retaken. So even if you took the CASPER and applied last cycle, you'll need to retake the CASPER this application cycle. They do not carry over. Again, GRE not required. All of our prerequisites must be completed with a C- or better in the spring semester prior to planned attendance. So you can apply and not have all your prerequisites met, but you have to be able to have a plan of action or show that you'll be able to complete those prerequisites in the spring prior to attendance. All science prerequisites must be completed within the last 10 years of application. We also require 3 letters of recommendation submitted through VIMCAS. Your transcripts and your letters and any other documentation will be submitted through VIMCAS. Anything sent to LMU CVM cannot be attached to your application, so bear that in mind. Our prerequisites are located on our website. However, I do have them here for viewing. I have the semester units and the quarter units as applicable to applicants. The only one on here that is a little different is the genetics. Some students will take animal breeding or a reproductive course to try to satisfy their genetics. In the case of those, please email the course description for the class that you're hoping to satisfy genetics to our veterinary admissions email. That email is located at the bottom of the slide, veterinarianadmissions@lmunet.edu. The rest of these, they again, all must be completed with a C- or better by the spring semester prior to your planned attendance. The biology requires a lecture and lab, and it does have to be 2. So there's 8 semester units or 12 quarter units. So generally that looks like a bio 1 and then a bio 2. The advanced science electives must be level 300 or higher. There are some course examples listed there for your reference. Do bear in mind that in future we are looking to add anatomy and physiology as a prerequisite. At this time and for this current cycle, that will not be the case. It is highly recommended, though, that students pursue a physiology and anatomy course prior to going into vet school. I have heard from vet students that it is a very invaluable thing to have. Anatomy is something that will be crucial going into veterinary medicine. And while we have it split up between semesters 1 and 2, good, strong foundations will have you prepared for success in your first year of vet school. Other courses include immunology and virology and the like. If you have courses that you are not sure would satisfy an advanced science elective, you're welcome to email again veterinary and admissions. Just copy that course description and direct it to us, and we can give it a look over and tell you whether or not it will satisfy. Organic chemistry and general chemistry, 6 semester units or 9 and 12 quarter units respectively. Those look like organic chem 1 and 2, general chem 1 and 2. We only require 1 genetics course, 1 biochemistry course, and 1 physics course. We do not require physics 2. And then an English course and a social sciences course. The social sciences courses run a law, like there's many that could apply for that. So you can see the list of potential courses that may cover and satisfy that. Generally speaking, by the time that you apply, you will have likely taken a social sciences that will satisfy this prerequisite. If you have questions again about any of them, you're welcome to email us directly and posit those questions that way. So I have discussed our prerequisites and our minimums. There are other dates that at large that are very important to keep in mind. So VIMCAS is already opened. It opened January 20th. May 12th will be the date that VIMCAS allows for you to choose the college in which you would like to submit your applications. August 12th is the last date to order professional transcripts entries through VIMCAS. It's recommended, it's a soft recommendation, it's not a hard recommendation. Keep August 15th in mind if you would like to have that VIMCAS submitted. For us specifically, we use a rolling admissions. So as soon as those applications are submitted and verified, we are able to go in with our admissions team and overview them and start assessing each application. So while it is good to submit early, bear in mind though, that VIMCAS is not going forward with planned experiences. So if there is something that will not be completed, don't submit your application until all of your pertinent experiences have been completed so that you can document that on your VIMCAS. I'll be talking more about VIMCAS experiences in the next slide. September 13th is the last day that it's recommended for us to take the CASPER. You can see our CASPER test dates at LMU CVM requirements to apply. And the official cutoff for the VIMCAS is September 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. This is when letters of recommendation are also due. The VIMCAS application will close, and it is a hard date that VIMCAS manages. If you fail to get your application submitted by that time, your application will be unverified and we will be unable to consider it for application. So big dates in mind, September 15th being the number one. It is recommended to not wait until September 15th to submit your VIMCAS for a number of reasons, including the fact that, as with all things, if there's an influx of activity on that day, we've seen it last cycle and cycles previously, VIMCAS can crash on you, and there is nothing worse in the world than trying desperately to get something submitted and then the website continuing to crash and close on you. So it's recommended to have everything lined up and queued and ready to submit prior to September 15th. But that is the official close deadline. And that time zone is Eastern. So it will close officially at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So that would be 10:59 p.m. Central Time. So the VIMCAS experience. All of our minimum requirements and stuff are listed on our website. However, the VIMCAS and application to vet schools at large is a very, very monumental challenge and hurdle. So I'm going to spend a decent amount of time discussing the VIMCAS experiences. I have been doing file reviews for this past application cycle for students who have gotten a denied status update. And there are things to bear in mind for your VIMCAS application outside of the prereqs and minimum requirements for the school that you're applying to. For LMU CVM, we do have an emphasis on a holistic way of looking at our applicants for admission. More schools are considering that holistic aspect because vet school at large is a highly competitive program. Admission is roughly 11.5% across the board. It is the hardest professional school to get into. So when you're going through the challenge of your VIMCAS, I go and I get to look at applications for file reviews, and I'm looking at 30 plus pages. So if this is the first time you've done your VIMCAS and you're already in the VIMCAS, I'm sure you're aware that it's a daunting task. When you're going through and filling out your experiences, be sure that you complete everything in total and provide pertinent information to what it's asking. Most applicants I have talked to have a concern that they should only list experiences that relate to animal or veterinarian. They are concerned that non-vet and animal experiences will reflect poorly on an application, which is not the case. Because LMU CVM has a holistic approach to the way that we look at our applicants, we enjoy seeing the full picture of an applicant. Your listed VIMCAS experiences are an excellent way to provide a snapshot image into you, the applicant. So your animal experience and your veterinarian experience are going to be, and research are likely the three experiences that will directly relate to animals in some form or fashion. Your animal experience is going to be any animal experience in which you interact with that is not under the supervision of a veterinarian. If you work in capacity with a veterinarian, it will go under veterinarian experience. Animal experiences can run any range from animal training to shelter animal enrichment activities to working on a farm or ranch. Those again will be without veterinarian supervision. In cases of animal experience where you work directly with and under a veterinarian, it will go under your veterinarian experiences. The exception to this is if you do any veterinarian research. If you participate in research that is underneath a veterinarian, it will go under your research experiences. Now, research experiences do not have to relate solely to animals or veterinary medicine. Science is science is science. Then there are a lot of biomedical research that applies to both humans and animals. LMU CVM has a philosophy where we have a focus on One Health, and that is the integration and connection of environment, animals, and humans. So some applicants are concerned that if they do human research, it won't look great on their application. I will respond with research is research is research. And any research you do will show not only the diversity of what you bring to the table as an applicant, but also the greater depths of your interests, dedication, willingness, etc. If you have non-animal research, it's a great thing to put on your application. Your employment then will be anything in which you are employed that does not directly relate to an animal or vet or research. So, got a job at Barnes and Nobles? That's great. You put it on there. Your extracurricular activities and your volunteer community enrichment are the two that end up getting neglected on applications. The extracurriculars in particular, two things that do not stand out to applicants when they're filling out their application is you can put your hobbies on there. So if you competitively bake, it sounds silly, but you can put it on there. Similarly, any of your certificates can go under your extracurriculars. So if you have No Fear Handling, CPR certified, if you're certified EMT, any of those certificates can go under your extracurricular activities. This is an opportunity to, again, show a highlight snapshot of who you are as an applicant beyond your academics and beyond your passion. Bear in mind, anybody pursuing veterinarian medicine, your passion is with animals, and which means your career and your regular passion collide. Having external interests that are not related to animals is a good thing. There is guidelines under the AAVMC which promote mental, physical, and emotional wellness. Veterinary medicine is very taxing. It is good to develop external interests and ways of divesting your interests from your passion. So even if you do CrossFit, I mentioned competitive baking, gardening, any hobby like that, you can list to give the reviewers an insight to who you are. Now, volunteer community enrichment. A lot of times when applicants are filling out your application and you're putting in your extracurriculars or your animal experience, there's a subtype that says compensated, self, volunteer. Problem though is if you have an animal experience listed and its subtype is volunteer, in the VIMCAS, it does not connect it to volunteer. So sometimes applicants will not put in any volunteer or community enrichment because they put a subtype in it. The volunteer community enrichments are great ways to show that you're a dynamic applicant who is not only committed to your profession, your interests, but also the community. Veterinarians are centered in communities because they provide a central service. We like to see applicants who have a wide range of things and are connected with the community. These things can run the range. They don't have to necessarily be things that you have reoccurring. Time management's a very difficult thing to perfect. It's an ongoing thing. These things can be stuff you can think of scheduling to fit into how it works best with you without overtaxing and burdening yourselves. So if you want to rotate between your animal, vet, and community interests, the first weekend of every month you do X, the second you do Y, the third you do Z. Make sure that you keep track of those and input them in there. There's nothing wrong with that. The community enrichment and volunteer can also be one-off events. You obviously cannot do blood drives all the time. We only have a finite amount of blood, so you clearly can't do that one very, very frequently. However, you can partake in that or organize. Similarly with there are walks to end Alzheimer's or memorial 5Ks. There are one-off events that occur in the community in which you can either organize or participate and show your activity without, again, overtaxing the finite time that you're already working with and scheduling. So I say that because each school is different. The way that the schools pull the data off of VIMCAS is different. Depending on if they pull this, if it shows 0 in any of these categories, it may not impact you negatively to a severe degree. However, it may not help you. So with that in mind, make sure as you're filling out your VIMCAS application that you not only satisfy all of the schools in which you're applying to's prerequisites and requirements, but make sure you complete the VIMCAS in its totality. Each school will also have school-specific questions, so if they're applicable to you, make sure that you answer it. Now, with that in mind, this is with relation to LMU-CVM's application timeline. So once you submit your VIMCAS in September, we'll begin verifying applications. Again, we do use a rolling admission cycle. So if your application has been submitted and verified before September 15th, we are able to go in there and begin viewing those individual applications. Interviews will then begin between October to January. December to March, early acceptances will be extended. Again, since we do have a rolling admissions, those admissions offers will continue to roll out at the discretion of the dean until all seats have been filled. January 31st is the official transcript submission deadline. So in that spring semester, January 31st, 2023, your transcripts will be due for the fall. February to March, then individual application reviews will begin so by that time in spring of next year, that's when applicants will start hearing a denial. Any applicants that have been denied can reach out to me and have a individual file review for consulting on how to improve the application for the next cycle. April 15th is the deadline. So this one is, if you've been extended an offer, you have until that date to give confirmation. It is not the official notice deadline. Then June 30th is the official date where spring transcripts are required. VIMCAS has additional date deadlines to keep in mind with details that are specific to VIMCAS. Since we use VIMCAS a cycle and everything goes through VIMCAS, I highly encourage you to peruse the VIMCAS website. They have a handy 2022 applicant guide that you can access and look through. I highly recommend that. So with that said, that's pretty much all of the things with relation to the admissions aspect. The rest of this slideshow really pertains to LMU CVM school and what we offer. So I'm going to be moving into that. Don't know, are there any questions specifically about the application so far?
There are no questions right now. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and move into LMU CVM specifically. So we have two campuses. It gets a little confusing because we're a border state. We literally are the tri-state area. So our main campus is located in Tennessee. This is the CVM located in Harrogate, Tennessee. The main highlights of this building really are, we have two main lecture halls. We have a research suite on the 3rd floor, and we have a state-of-the-art communications simulation lab. We have 24 rooms in which CVM students get to develop their professional clinical skills. It's very fun. It is akin to if you walk into a doctor's office, we have paid actors in which they have a animal with them, and students are able to develop their clinical professional skills by interacting in real time with a client and then a simulation patient. Those simulation patients are stuffed animals, and they have to interact with them as if they were real. I think my favorite's a plastic bearded dragon. It's I don't know. I'm just a sucker for dragons. Now, our second location site is in Ewing, Virginia. It is a 10 to 15 minute drive over to this campus. And this is where all of the primary clinical skills are taught. And with anybody interested in touring the campus, this is the place in which you're touring and of most note. The DVTC, the DeBusk Veterinary and Teaching Center, has 6 facilities on site. We have the small animal clinical skills, in which students actually will learn all of the clinical skills necessary from suturing, microscopes, you name it. If it's a clinical skill, it's taught in that building. We also perform surgeries in this building, so I'll get into the details of how that gets led up. We also have a equine teaching center, a bovine teaching center. We have an equine stables on site, and then we have an anatomy space. So our preclinical curriculum is years 1, 2, and 3. From day 1, year 1, semester 1, you get introduced into animals, hands-on techniques, how to handle, how to approach, how to halter, how to lead. Some students have never had experience with large animals. We do have 60 dry jersey on site, and we have about 30 horses who have been donated. These are the animals in which students get to have direct experience and learn how to handle and interact with large animals. Again, that's going to be from in your first year. And the other thing that occurs is students in the clinical skills lab will get to learn how to do assessments on dogs, always a lovely time, and learn how to do blood draws and all the other important things. So year 1 into year 2 builds all your muscle memory and core things. In your second year, you will actually be given a LM uterus. It's a fun, weird name, but it's a model that we have created in-house in which second years have to perform a full spay on. If students are unable to perform a spay on the LM uterus, they will not be able to move into their third year to perform surgeries. Your third year, then, students are actually in the surgical suite performing surgeries. Students are broken into groups of 3. Our surgical teams are students of 3. It's the surgeon, the surgeon's assistant, and the anesthetist. By the time that you complete your third year, you will have completed 3 surgeries yourself and participated in 9. The surgeries we perform are spays and neuters, and all the animals in which this occurs on are shelter animals. The animals and the shelters are located in the tri-state area, and so they get to come to the EVTC. They are assessed, they get spayed, neutered, all necessary shot and health treatments, and then they go back to be adopted. As you can probably surmise, many students and staff and faculty walk away with new friends since they are all up for adoption. Our big emphasis is being day 1 ready. And so by the time that you complete your first, second, and third year, and you're getting ready to go into your 4th year, you will feel confident to go into clinical settings and pick up new information. That clinical year is a hybrid distributed model. So once you go into the 4th year, you will be out on site locations, spending time in different clinical sites, learning new information. You will be fully immersed in the individual clinic as you rotate through. They have specific interests and focus. So there is a part of it where you actually have electives to really emphasize the aspects of veterinary medicine which interest you. It's also a great way to network. Many of our students already get job offers before they complete their 4th year. And I am told one of our current students who are out actually got a job offer from NASA. So how that came about, I don't know, but it's pretty cool. So this is the clinical year overview. Again, 16 weeks of this will be elective. So we do have the required rotations that you can see on the screen. Of the 16 weeks, though, we have over 1,000 clinical affiliates. The next slide will actually give you a disbursement of where they're located, but the students have not expressed any concern about not getting a particular clinical rotation that fits what they're wanting. LMU-CVM is not a tracking program, so we do not force students into a particular track of veterinary medicine. Students will be exposed to all of the aspects of veterinary medicine. So we do have small, large, surgical, etc. We have emphasis on an exposure to shelter medicine, as with, that's where our animals come from. But nowhere in there are students forced to go into a particular veterinary medicine track. Students are encouraged to have a wide range of experiences to help them to develop the plan of action of what career path they really want. I was speaking to a current student actually just the other day, and she's like, I came in thinking, I love horses. I want to do equine medicine. Oh, I hate equine medicine. So you will come in with a perspective of what you think you may want. You get exposed to it and you're like, maybe I don't do that. So our clinical year overview with all of these sites and all of these exposures, it really does let students have a great understanding of if they're on the fence about not wanting to do a particular track of veterinary medicine, they can experience it in real time and know that, yes, indeed, that is not the route for me. I prefer being this sort of practitioner or this. Those affiliate sites, like I say, we have over 1,000 and counting, and we're constantly adding new clinical affiliates. Again, there has been no expressed concern about students not getting the clinical experience that they want. These locations, you can see it's prominent along the Appalachian region, but they are growing, and this is probably not an accurate model of how many new affiliates we've added recently. Outside of that, we do have LMU-CVM research areas. We've got the CAHA, Center for Animal and Human Health in Appalachia, and we have CIVET, Center for Innovation in Veterinary Education and Technology. We also have a partnership or cooperative agreement with the Gluck Equine Research. And there is many other aspects. Our students participate in undertake a lot of different research, and it runs the gambit of interests. It's very cool to see the different tracks of research that students actually get involved in. So if you are interested in research, that is definitely a thing that you can pursue here. We also have graduate education options. These are the current ones listed. One of note is we do have a dual DVM MBA. Students are exposed to business practices for running a vet clinic in their third year. You do get exposure to that. However, some students do prefer to have a greater understanding of business management, and we do offer the DVM MBA dual, which can be completed in the 4 years so that you're not having to take either a gap year to pursue your MBA or an additional year after completing your DVM to get. The academics aside, our student services and admissions. I've now recently been added to the slideshow. I've done this slideshow a couple of times and I was not sadly on it, and now I am. Haha, there I am. So this is our admissions team and our student services team. We do have a holistic evaluation of our academic and non-academic attributes. So we look at the GPA, yes, and we do look at the CASPER. But we also want to know that students have an in-depth understanding of the veterinarian profession. That is an important aspect. For the veterinarian hours, a rough range of exposure that we see in matriculated students, they generally range about 1,200. Now, some individuals are not able to get the full range, especially with fighting difficulties with COVID and moving out of COVID. Some clinics are not accepting shadowing, and it's been difficult for individuals to get experiences. Bear in mind quality over quantity. So even though matriculated students on average are ranging about 1,200 hours, do bear in mind that we do know that not all students have accessibility to clinical experience like that. So maximize what you do have. Letters of recommendation, I mentioned previously, those do go through VIMCAS. They do have to be electronic. That is what VIMCAS requires. They do not take paper letters of recommendation. Your letters of recommendation, do not recommend doing more than 4 or 5. Before you select your recommenders, go over and look at the evaluation questions and be sure that you select individuals you feel confident can speak and give you a solid recommendation, who know you and have an insight. If you are working and some of your experiences are in a vet clinic and you have a good relationship with that clinician, it is recommended to request a letter of rec from them. Your letters of recommendation are a great way to highlight other aspects of who you are as an applicant through a third party. Your VIMCAS essay, I'm not sure if VIMCAS is going to continue the personal statement or if it's the essay, but we do look at that. And then if you get offered an interview, the interview is then also considered into the final decision of the admissions committee. Now, bear in mind, while these are the individuals for admissions and student services at large, we do not make up the admissions committee. Holly, myself, and Emily are the ones who actually make up the admissions office. We tee everything up for our admissions committee to see. We'll be the ones in communication as the application cycle goes, or if you have questions about prerequisites, or if this course satisfies the requirements. So we would be the ones to reach out to. We tee everything up for our admissions committee, who then makes and reviews all the applications and then puts forward recommendations to the dean, which the dean is the one that then makes those recommendations for applications to matriculate or offers extended. So for the admissions requirements, other than the holistic view and all the other things we look at, while our minimum GPA is at 2.8, I'll direct you to the bottom of the slide, which shows our class of 2025's admission statistics. So their overall GPA was a 3.39. Their overall science a 3.24. Competitive GPA ranges are a 3.3, 3.4. There should be an option for an exception statement. So if you have a rough GPA and there are things that you would like to communicate to the admissions committee, there should be a section on the VIMCAS application for you to do so. Other things to consider with the GPA, LMU CVM uses the GPA as calculated by VIMCAS. I again recommend, if you would like to see how things work out in your favor, you can Google VIMCAS GPA calculator. It's tedious, but it will pull up an Excel sheet in which you can calculate your own GPA. So if you're trying to consider whether or not to retake a course, I would direct you to that tool to plug in the data. Because of the way that we use VIMCAS's calculations, VIMCAS will average retakes. So some applicants will be looking at their application and they're like, I got a C- on this. Do you recommend that I retake it? Again, I will refer back to consider all the schools that you're applying to. Some schools will look at retakes and they'll consider, or they will look at the overall. We use the overall as calculated by VIMCAS, and VIMCAS will average those grades together. So even if you retake the course and get an A, you're looking at a B-. It can be a rough way to go, and retakes are out of pocket. So that's why I recommend utilizing that VIMCAS calculator and weighing all the pros and cons of whether or not you should retake a course. Overall GPA will also consider your undergraduate and graduate altogether. And so because of the way that VIMCAS calculates it, sometimes the VIMCAS overall GPA will be lower than you're anticipating. So just be aware of that. All the prereqs must be completed with a C- or better by June of 2022. And again, we're not requiring the GRE. We do require the CASPER assessment. I myself am still trying to figure out how to read the CASPER scores. I haven't had the time to really learn that. What I can say though, for anyone who is curious about how to read or what a competitive CASPER score is, the CASPER percentile is averaged per test day and test time. So there is not an overall competitive CASPER range. Keep that in mind. Because the CASPER is a soft skills assessment, it is a snapshot into who you are, and it compares all of that data along with everyone else who took the test alongside you. Estimated cost of attendance. I'll let you look at that. We do not have in-state, out-of-state tuition. Our tuition is the same across the board. Similarly, we do not show preferential to in-state, out-of-state seats. Everyone has equal access to consideration. So cost of attendance, your years 1 through 3 look very similar. Your 4th year is a little more expensive because of the indirect costs of transportation. Those clinical years you'll be moving around, and therefore it incurs a little bit more cost. But again, no in-state tuition. Our tuition is straight across for in-state and out-of-state students. Housing options. We are quite literally on the tri-state. I drive 15 minutes, I get to Kentucky. I drive 15 minutes, I get to Virginia. And right now I'm in Tennessee. So for students who are looking at housing options, it really is somewhere in the tri-state area that works best for you. While we do have on-campus housing, and you can see that information there on the screen, the unfortunate fact is they're not pet friendly, not necessarily, which means most people like to have pets. And some students who are prospective, they worry that bringing Fido to school, it can be difficult. I've heard from the students who are currently going through the CVM program that while it is an adjustment, it's very doable. So if you're interested in bringing a pet along, it is recommended to look at off-campus housing. And those off-campus sites will be, again, in the tri-state area, Kentucky, Virginia, or Tennessee. Housing is very affordable in the area. I myself just recently relocated here in September. And for reference, for anybody who is considering data analysis, I have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,100 square foot apartment house rental. It's a house rental. Sorry, not an apartment, house rental, $900 a month for that. My utilities are a little bit different, but the utilities across the board are $200. So housing in the area is very affordable. Most students are looking at $350 to $700 for rental, depending if they decide to rent a house and split it with somebody, or if they want to rent a house by themselves. One thing that is not counted in this is transportation is necessary. We do not have transportation that will ferry people back and forth between CVM and the DVTC. So a means of transporting yourself will be required. We do have a well-being committee. You may recall that I again mentioned earlier on the AAVMC's emphasis on guidelines of mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Those are a broader category as well for a well-being committee. This serves as a liaison between the student body and the CVM administration, and they do advocate for physical, mental, and emotional well-being for our students. It runs the gambit. They do a lot of things. There's a big emphasis for once you get here, we do want students to make sure that they're taking time for themselves and maintaining their well-being. If you are not taking care of yourself, then it's difficult to progress forward. So there's big emphasis on mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Student activities, student services, I'll cover first. We do have a wide range of student services available. So to speak to the wellness committee, we do have a financial aid counseling, and we do have mental health counselors. In addition to those, we offer a wide range of engagement for students to partake in. We do have a fitness center here on campus. I will let you make your own judgments. The Students Fitness Center is located in the student, it lives where the bookstore, Chick-fil-A, and Starbucks is in the student center. So it's a fun combination of things in a specific building, but they're all there for you. We do have a librarian. We do have a specific college veterinarian librarian, so that is a good resource tool for students as well. But there are also other activities that are not just in the CVM. There are intramural sports that occur, and there are other clubs that exist at LMU Maine. One thing that recently happened was National Cereal Day. There was a table. It was full of every single cereal you can imagine, with all various available milks available. And so they'll set up a lot of things like that in the areas where the CVM students are to encourage them to de-stress, partake in time, take some time off. There are breaks scheduled into the student's schedule too. And getting ready to go into your NAVLE, there is a period of time in which is set aside for you to study for your NAVLE, and they do provide the study material for your NAVLE. Additional student activities. While campus clubs exist at large for LMU, the CVM has a wide range of clubs internally. I believe we have, when I first started in January, there was 26. Now there is about, I think they've added 2 or 3 additional clubs since I've started working here. The clubs provide a means for students to have camaraderie amongst themselves. It also is an opportunity for students to get engaged with the particular interests that they may have. So the, let's see, surgery club, as the name implies, it is all about surgery. I have heard from current students that when you get here for your first year, it's recommended that any club that looks interesting, if you have any interest or curiosities about a particular pathway of veterinary medicine, it is encouraged that you join in that club from day one. It will give you experience and exposure to the specifics of that veterinarian profession. And all the clubs do bring in and host their own wet labs. They coordinate with the school at large to make sure that they're not duplicating wet labs, so that students can maximize their experience and exposure to learning. Clubs will also bring in guest speakers. They'll also host dinners in the evening. so that they are, again, having shared camaraderie, but also getting a social experience with their peers. The other aspects of the clubs are Shelter Med Club. They work very tirelessly to make sure that any animals who need to be fostered get fosters. They also secure transport for any animals that need to be transported to a shelter. And it's a very good experience for students to get involved in. And at large, that's about all I have to present. There is a veterinarian admissions email listed. There are our social medias and a phone number for reference. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a quick question. So you mentioned earlier that there's no difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition. So with that in mind, do y'all interview all of your applicants, both in-state and out-of-state? And are there any certain percentages of applicants that you take from certain areas or states?
There may be data that exists. I'm not sure what the data is. So for the way the admissions committee has two parts in which they assess and determine offering acceptances. The first round of that is to determine if an applicant will be extended an interview. My understanding is because we do not have, you're correct, we don't have in-state, out-of-state tuition, it's all the same. We similarly do not have any specific interest or how to say this. We treat all applicants the same. So there is no differential treatment to particular this state versus this state. We do have a service mission for Appalachian. I believe one of the questions on there is with regards to rural commitment and going out into those, but that's a question specific internally that they'll assess. But outside of that, there is no preferential to particular areas or states. Well, there may be data, I don't have it in front of me, nor do I know if it's housed anywhere specifically. Is that satisfactory?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I do not believe so. Thank you so much for coming and speaking today.
You're very welcome. If anybody does have a question that pops up, again, reach out to that email, shoot us a question. We're a little swamped right now with the closing of the current cycle, but once we can, we'll get back to you. And thanks for having me, and so glad I could talk to you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Guys, have a good day.
You as well.
Thank you.